Good evening, Mr. Miller, members of staff, parents, and students of Year 11. Welcome to the preliminary HSC Information Night for 2017. Tonight we will hear from members of the college staff as we begin our journey towards the HSC. We will begin with a prayer. I now call forward Reese to lead us in acknowledgement of country, and Zach, who will then lead us in prayer.
We pause to remember the uniqueness of this place. We honour and respect the generations of the Tharwell people who held this land in their dreaming.
We begin our prayer for wisdom this evening in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Loving God, wisdom is the absolute comprehension of all things past, present, and future. We pray that through our learning as senior students, we gain knowledge and insight which enables us to understand better our place in the world. May we model our example of Christ and work together in our Morris way to make this world a better place. Amen. St. Marcellin Champagne, Mary, our good mother, and let us always remember, in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Reese and Zach. I now invite our headmaster, Mr. Miller, to address the meeting.
Thanks, Alex. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming out tonight, and thank you for being here so promptly as well. Tonight starts a new journey for your young men. The fact that we're Year 11 and we're looking at senior college now, and the game changes in many ways. When I look back to last year's Year 11 group, they started with 190 boys. By the time we'd finished at the end of last year, especially after term 3, because that's the conclusion of Year 11, we'd actually lost 30 boys. And when I looked at those 30 boys and checked out where they'd gone, they'd picked up apprenticeships. And I know there'd be a number of gentlemen in Year 11 this year who are here. They can't get an apprenticeship, but they have to go on to school because of the 17 level. But they will be looking for apprenticeships as we go forward. But I would also add to that if we're looking for apprenticeships, we still need a very good report, because that's what the employer is going to look at when we're moving ahead. When I looked at some of the Year 10s who have gone on to Year 11, we lost a number of boys out of there as well. And again, it wasn't they were unhappy with St Greg's, but they wanted to get apprenticeships, and we've lost a number of boys who have gone and claimed apprenticeships out of Year 10 to 11. So we've gone ahead with the present group. And I'm sure, as I said, it'll be a well-rounded group from the point of view. We'll have boys who are looking for vocational education, and we'll also have boys who are looking at going on to university. If I can just take the university for a moment, we had the Higher Achievers Assembly the other day, and one thing that came out of it and really struck me about it was when I looked at the boys, and it seems to be the case every year, that the boys who are always over 90 or always work to the best of their ability, even if I look under 90. But they're boys who don't just concentrate in the classroom. Yes, they go to school, they do their 9 to 3, they take on board all the subject material, they do their study overnight as well. But they do a lot more than that. If I look at Josiah from last year, the college captain, he actually played rugby league for the school, he played rugby union for the school. As we know, he can sing, and he also did public speaking and debating. If I look at Richard, who was the Dux of the college, Richard did the debating, and he also played ISA soccer on the Saturday. I look at Murray Cook, another one who picked up debating and also was playing AFL for an AFL club on the weekend. So the message seems to be the fact that yes, you do your study and you do the best you possibly can in that area, but be well-rounded. You all have other talents. You need to take those up and get those developed. As we all know, there's a very wide co-curricular program here, and I'd encourage you to become very much involved in it. This year, and I'm sure you'll hear later, we're doing the musical. It's going to be Beauty and the Beast, and we're doing it here at the college. So once again, we've already started rehearsals for that, and we're looking for people to be involved in it. That's something different again for you, so I would encourage you. With the vocational trade, there are going to be times with that where we've got boys going to TAFE, we've got boys doing the work placement, and we also have boys who are here 3 days, 1 day at TAFE, 1 day at work placement, and hopefully they will get apprenticeships out of that as they move ahead. Those boys, the ones with the 3, the 2, the 1, they will actually be going through to year 12. They get the HSC with it as well. But once again, boys who are doing work placement as they're going through the year, I know the boys will tell me the magic number is 17 so they can get that licence, and then they're really up there for an apprenticeship. But again, that report is the important thing. When I look at the reports, as you know, I look at the grades really, the 1, 2, 3 and 4. And I think it's fairly important we get the message that we've come into year 11, we're serious about study, and we shouldn't even be talking about conduct or behaviour in classrooms. I've put out to the school in general that if a boy has 3 red stamps for conduct, he'll do a Friday afternoon detention. Once he's done 3 Fridays, he's going to come in on a Sunday, and he'll be here from 10 o'clock till 11:30. And we'll try and get the message home that we are serious. Now, I don't expect that to apply to any year 11 boy, and if it does, it shouldn't. Otherwise, we shouldn't be here because you're just wasting mum and dad's money. The second thing I've been looking at, and I trialled it with a boy the other day, we had to suspend some boys the other day, and I went to one of them and I said, you're going to miss 2 days of school. I'll give you the option of coming in on Sunday, and I'll sit with you and I'll monitor you from 10 o'clock till 3 o'clock on the Sunday, and you can do the 40 pages you have to do then. That way you won't miss any school. I gave the boy that option. He said, I'd much prefer Monday, Tuesday, thank you. But I'm sure parents would agree with me that you're paying school fees, you want them here at school, you don't want them out of class. And if we get to that situation where I have to suspend someone, I'm more than happy to bring them in on a Sunday instead of during the week so they don't miss the school. Because I think to get the best out of these young men, we need to have them here all the time. And that leads me on to the attendance side of life. The fact that I get letters periodically, and I understand why families are going on the holidays, it's a one-off journey sort of thing. But again, to take that time off during 11 and 12 presents with problems because they have an assessment calendar, they know when the assessments are there, they know what they have to do with them. And if boys aren't there, it causes a major problem in having to give estimates, or they've got to reset the assessment task when they come back to school. And I don't really want to put staff or the young men through that as well. And it's the same with the exams. They know when the exam periods are on, they know when they have to be here for those. And if they miss them, then they have to do them again. Now, one of the things, as many of you know, I do Monday afternoon study with the boys. The boys come up, they sit down and they just get on with it. And if we have to resit exams and things, that's when we're going to do them, on the Monday afternoon, because I don't want to put staff out. If I can make it easier for everyone and just do it that way, that's the way I want to get it. I think these young men have got a lot of talent. They can do very well, but it's up to each one of them to put the best foot forward and work to the best of their ability. When you look at it, you've got 3 terms of year 11, and then you start going into year 12. And I said to one of the year 12 boys the other day, they're down to 29 weeks now before that HSC. And if you speak to the year 12 boys, they'll tell you it goes very quickly. So you really have to use up every day, every lesson, and make the best of everything that you do. So gentlemen, going into year 11, starting on this senior journey, I commend you to work to the best of your ability. Stay focused on it, because it's your attitude that's going to turn it for you. And as long as you're working well and you put a positive attitude on everything, you will do well. So I'd ask you to concentrate on those things. The other thing I'd just like to briefly talk about, someone else will mention it, but the immersions. As many of you know, we have the immersion in year 11, and they go to Vanuatu, and I think it's the Solomons is the other one, or Fiji and Vanuatu. But it is a great experience for boys, and someone will come out here and talk to you in a minute about it and tell you how they found it life-changing. And I'd commend that to you. If you can afford it, it's an experience that you don't want to leave behind. The last thing I'll tell you about, just a quick update. You would have felt coming in here tonight the difference with it, so obviously the air condition makes a difference. The boys came back, all their classrooms are air conditioned these days, so the facilities here are really good for them. The only other one we're still waiting on is the Learning Centre. That should be finished by the end of this month. We'll have that opened, and that will hold at least 500 people. And it is fully air conditioned as well. So it's something the boys will be able to use, and hopefully they'll value it, and we'll be able to do a lot of different things in that particular learning area. Just on the parking, I would have sent you at least 4 emails, I think, during the holidays with road maps and all sorts of other things for you. But the timeline on everything at the moment, if you can believe timelines, the road that is going out that way. They tell me that should be ready for you at the end of term 1. I'd say somewhere during term 2 most probably, but the moment that opens up, you'll be able to go out of the college, you'll swing left, and that'll take you straight out to Camden Valley Way, so that'll be a lot quicker for everyone. I'm still working on the back gate. As some of you would know, obviously the secret's getting out that it's much easier to come to the back gate and drop the boys off, but we will have electronic gates on that. They will be closed except during peak hour because I don't want people to be able to just drive through the college. So at the moment they've got a construction gate on it, but that drop off is during peak hour, pick up again at the end of the day, and it does save you a lot of time coming that way, I'm sure, and it's just a matter of following that roadmap that I sent you out. Hopefully the other thing we're looking at, and we've already got a price on it, is to do something with that road coming up from that western drop-off and doing a new drop-off internally in the college. Instead of up here, the new drop-off eventually will be down at the basketball courts there, and that'll make it a lot easier for everyone. I'll give you a timeline on that. Christmas, I think, will be quite safe to say. Everything roadwork-wise, out there, down there, will all be completed. Let's hold on to that positive thought anyway. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. The purpose of this evening's meeting is to prepare us for the academic year ahead. I now invite our Director of Studies, Mrs. Keegan, to speak to you about curriculum issues.
Thank you very much, Alex. I'd also like to welcome you here tonight and thank Mr. Miller very much for the air conditioning. Mrs. Dean and I have been to the University of Wollongong today with Year 12. It's usually a very cool place, Wollongong, not today. So Mrs. Dean and I are both enjoying the air conditioning. My job tonight is to take you through the next stage of the ROSA, but also the assessment program that goes with that. So just a reminder, if your son is not sure, and it's become evident that a number of them are not quite sure at the moment, in Year 11 they need to study a minimum of 12 units. Some of our boys are on 12 units because they might be studying an extension subject or because they're studying 2 units of religion. Most of our students in Year 11 are on 13 units. The most common question I've had in the last week is, how do I get a study period? When we move into Year 11 and into Year 12, each of the students needs to have a minimum of 10. Most of our students will have 11 units with 1 unit of religion. Something to be really careful about, and we will certainly monitor that for you, is that you must have 6 units of board-developed courses. Most of our courses fit into that category. Some of them that don't, however, are Sports, Life and Rec, General Maths 1, quite a number of our TAFE courses. Photography is also in that category. If your son is looking at university entrance, he will need an ATAR. That stands for the Australian Tertiary Admissions Rank, and that replaced the UAI a number of years ago now. To get an ATAR, or to qualify for an ATAR, a student must have 2 units of English at least, plus 8 other units. They can include 1 unit of a vocational subject, such as primary industries or metals, construction, etc., but they must sit the exam in that subject for the HSC for it to be considered. It's really important that you understand that only 1 of those subjects can be included for your ATAR. I've met with a number of gentlemen in the past week about their patterns of study, but we really should be getting to the stage now where the patterns of study are settled. So any changes that take place from here in, unless I'm already in conversation with you, should really only be changes of level. So for example, if you're doing advanced English and you find that a bit of a struggle, you might like to drop back to standard. The same goes with mathematics. And we can also negotiate with perhaps a subject like physics or chemistry and senior science if you're struggling with that. It's really important to remember that this year, for the most part, is post-compulsory schooling. A number of you may have decided just to come back to Year 11 until you turn 17, but the reality is that the vast majority of you are here for the duration, which is really great to see. It's important then that you accept that these 2 years of schooling are really important in terms of you taking responsibility for your learning. Mrs. Dean will speak to you about the importance of setting goals, and I'd really encourage you to listen clearly about that. It's really, if you have something in mind, even if it's only something minor, it's much better than just hanging around for 2 years and not having any direction at all. Mr. Miller has already mentioned that you have no right to interrupt other people's learning, and I agree with him wholeheartedly. In the next 24 hours, the prelim assessment handbook will be available on the college website and on the Sky Blue system of school. What that will provide for you is guidelines for the award of the HSC. So all of those things I've talked about tonight in terms of units and ATAR are all covered in that booklet. It also goes through our assessment guidelines and will contain an assessment schedule for each of the subjects that you're studying for the prelim year. Why do we have an assessment handbook? Well, the Board of Studies, or NISA now, says we have to have one, but it's really important that we are fair and just to all of our students. The other thing that it's really important to keep in mind, right from the start of Year 11, even though it doesn't come into play until Year 12, is that when you are in Year 12, a school-based assessment makes up 50% of your HSC mark. Right? You really can't underestimate the importance of that. And we try to model our assessment procedures in Year 11 on the same processes that we use in Year 12. And our theory behind that is if you're going to make a mistake, it's better to make it now than to make it in Year 12 when it will be much more costly. I mentioned that the assessment handbook will have an outline of each of the subjects. It will give you an idea of the timing and the weighting of the tasks, and also details about the ROSA grading. Also in the next 24 hours, you will have available to you the Year 11 assessment calendar that Mr. Miller referred to. Now, that calendar will highlight all the important exam periods, but it will also give you all of the dates for each of your assessment tasks. You need to work out what your own method will be for tracking those, whether you put them in your paper diary, if you have an electronic diary, perhaps you just want to print out the calendar and put it near your desk, etc., etc. There's always a copy on the website, and the copy on the website is always the one that's updated. Occasionally, we have to change things. We will also make sure we update the copy on Sky Blue. So what are some of your responsibilities? To note the date, the method of submission, so whether that's something you have to email to your teacher, hand in to your teacher, etc. Make sure that you know the rules. You can't tell me that you didn't understand or your teacher didn't tell you. Each of the assessment tasks you are given the details will be in writing. So you need to make sure that you read them. If you are absent from a task that's based at school, you need to make sure that you have a medical certificate to cover that. If, for example, the task is on a Wednesday and you're not well enough to return to school until Friday, you need to make sure that your medical certificate covers Thursday as well. If it's a hand-in task and you're unwell, you might be able to get someone to drop it off for you, or you might be able to email it to your teacher. In that case, you don't need a medical certificate. When you are ill, you need to make sure that you see the head of the department with your medical certificate as soon as you return to school. If you're not sure who that is, you are most welcome to come and see me, and I will direct you accordingly. One of the things that the Board of Studies is particularly clear about is that it must be your own work. Right? So please be very careful about working together or copying great slabs from the internet. You need to make sure that it's your work. The other thing that you need to be really careful about is if you are using a computer for your task, please make sure that you back it up regularly or keep working papers. You can't tell me that your computer failed. You've got to make sure that you've done something to at least back yourselves up. One of the other things that everybody needs to note really carefully is that because you need to complete a minimum of 12 units for prelim, if you do not meet the assessment requirements in one of your subjects, that may jeopardise your entire HSC in the short term. It may mean that you have to spend another year at school or whatever just to make up that subject. You cannot go on to the HSC courses until you've met all the requirements of prelim. Okay, that means giving it your best shot in every subject. So what are some of the tips that I feel help? Be organised, know when your assessments are due. Plan your approach, right? Don't look at your calendar and go, oh, ancient history assessment tomorrow, better go home and start that now. If you actually get started on something as soon as you get it, it will make it a lot easier to break up into parts. There are penalties if you are late, so it's really important to be on time. We have a number of resources to help you through the Study Skills Handbook, and Prue Salter, who is the consultant who runs that website, will actually be here to work with you tomorrow in period 3. Her presentation, as you know, many of you worked with her in Year 10. This is very much a tailored senior presentation, and it will be well and truly worth the time tomorrow. One of the questions I'm often asked by parents is, how much time should my son be spending on his homework? So as a guide, you should be looking at 20 to 30 minutes per subject, per 2-unit subject. Now, you may not have every subject every day, but you need to make sure that you're planning for assessment tasks that are coming up, making notes on things that you've already done, perhaps developing a list of questions that you need to follow up with your teacher or things that you need to research. Mr. Miller indicated that we had the High Achievers Assembly last Friday, and some of the tips that they had, their biggest one, I guess, was to avoid distractions. I know Richard, who was our Dux, said that he had to work very hard on this one. And so some of the distractions they listed, and I'm sure that if you're realistic and honest, you can see that some of these are a distraction for you too. Television, food, the internet, games consoles, and of course, as a parent, the big one, the phone, is a big distraction. Try to work out what you need to do to actually get some solid working time. So whether that means that mum's got to take your phone for half an hour while you do some work and then you get it back for a little while, whatever works for you as a student. I mentioned already the importance about making some notes as you go and being consistent, following up with your teachers, having some balance in your life. Shouldn't be all work, it should be some sport and some relaxation as well. Take some notes of when you work best. You know, if you're a morning person, get up and do some work in the morning. If you're a nighttime person, do it then. But try to work out what's best for you. Mrs. Dean will talk to you about planning a timetable. Sticking to it is a vital ingredient for success. Set yourself some rewards, some goals and some rewards, and make sure if you can, stay as positive and as motivated as you can. Some of the things that we have on offer at the school, Monday and Tuesday afternoons from 3:30 to 5 o'clock. The reality is it's usually about 3:15 to 5 o'clock. We have students on the door as soon as school's over. That's a really good opportunity to study quietly. We also have mathematics study from 3:15 to 4:30 on a Wednesday. I've mentioned that Prue will be here tomorrow, and that's the address of the Study Skills Handbook if you want to have a look at that one. Some of the issues that arose in Year 10 were plagiarism, working together, incomplete tasks, and failure to submit on time. So some possible solutions: make sure you listen carefully to all instructions, read the assessment handbook carefully. I don't expect you to read every single word of it, but the general gist is really important. There's also information online, so the former Board of Studies website, which is now called the NISA website, is a really good source of information. Those goals that you are setting for yourself, make sure they're realistic, right, and achievable. I cannot overstate the importance of consistency. When we get to the end of Year 12, in my experience, it's not always those who are the best and the brightest who do really, really, really well. In my experience, it's those who have worked consistently throughout the time, right from the start of Year 11. Year 11 is a really valuable opportunity to get your study routines down, to get into the routine of things, because the time will go very quickly. Once we get into Year 12, practice with past exam papers is very helpful. So as a parent, what can we do to help? Obviously being supportive and having a quiet, comfortable place to study is really important. A little bit of extra support at exam time. Also support a realistic study program that encourages balance. One of my favourite interviews with parents a number of years ago, not at this school, at my previous school, was a young man who had an exceptional academic record, 7 to 10, and he wasn't doing it all well in Year 11. And when his parents came to see me with him to say, oh, you know, they were very disappointed about his results and they couldn't work out why he wasn't doing well now, and, you know, had he lost his brain, etc. It turned out he was doing 30 hours a week at Coles. Now, I really do encourage some part-time work, but if you're doing 30 hours a week at Coles, that's your career, not school, right? So please be realistic. You cannot do 30 hours a week at school, at Coles, and cope with an academic program of study. The money's fabulous, but that's what you'll be doing for a lifetime if that's the case. For parents as well, it's important to value academic effort. This is a really big step up from the junior school. The content is really difficult in many of our subjects, so it's important. If your son perhaps isn't achieving as well as you would like, but he's giving his best, that's really important. And as both a teacher and a mum, I've found it's really important to listen. Thank you very much for your time tonight. I will be here after the meeting, and you're most welcome if you've got any questions. Please don't hesitate to contact me at any time. Whether you need to call or email, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I'm really looking forward to working with you and your sons for the next 2 years. It's great that I know a lot of them already, but I'm looking forward to getting to know quite a few more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Keegan. An important task for us as seniors is to set goals and begin to frame our direction for our future. An invaluable resource in achieving this will be our careers advisor, Mrs. Dean. To speak about careers and support for seniors, please welcome Mrs. Dean.
Thank you, Alex. Good evening. It is nice and cool in here, Mr. Miller. When I got home from the university this afternoon, I had a goal. And my goal was to make sure that I'd covered all the things I needed to do for tonight. It was a short goal. I sat down, made sure I didn't have any distractions, and wrote a list to make sure I told you everything I needed to do. If you're going on to Year 11 and 12, and ultimately into a university course, a TAFE course, an apprenticeship, anything at all, you need goals. And the two ways to do it are long-term and short-term. By the end of term 1, you should have all been able to manage a short-term goal. And that might have been as easy as, I'll make sure that I start assessment tasks 2 weeks ahead of time. Or I'll see Mrs. Dean and ask her, how would I go about planning an assessment that's due in 2 weeks? How do I do my time management skills? My long-term goal might be by the end of halfway through Year 11, I've seen Mrs. Dean about what I might do as a career. And I'll follow that up by going to the Careers Forum at the beginning of Term 3. If you've got something to work towards, guys, it is much easier to achieve. You have to have somewhere to aim to. If it's all just out there in, I think I might want to be, and you don't know how to go about it, then you'll find you start falling back. So I just want to go through these 5 things tonight very quickly. But goals is the first starting point, and that's what the Careers Room's all about. I work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm always there before school. I'm always there at recess, and I'm always there at lunchtime. And if you ask me, I'll make time to be there when it suits you. Maybe that's after school. But we can very quickly go through goals. We can very quickly start to work on a program of time management and study and all the things that come into being. Great time to go into Year 11, except at some stage this year you want to get your licence, so you're going to look through that magic L plates. Mrs. Keegan mentioned a job. They're great things for resumes, so you'll have to go about trying to get some part-time work. A number of you, over 20 of you, are starting a TAFE course sometime next week, and you won't be here for one period every week. You who are doing school-based apprenticeships, and there's 7 of you at the moment, are only going to be here 3 days a week. And you have to plan how you'll use that time when you're at TAFE or on the workforce. And there are a million other things. There's a lot of you that are sportsmen, and training has already started for some of you. So all those things I'm happy to help you with. Time management is the one that will work for you. How do we put all those things into a 7-day week cycle? So the Careers Room, that has a lot of resources, and me, I suppose, as a resource, is there for you, and you need to make use of it. Someone told me years ago, someone I knew very, very well, that he hated my room, and I was very insulted. And he told me the scary thing about it was that I have to make up my mind what I want to do when I come into your room, and I'm not sure what to do. I really just want to stay at school because it's safe. So we had to start that process, which we did, and we worked through it. I'm very old-fashioned and old, and the Careers Room also has paper, which I love. So I can give you a book to take home, to borrow, which is the university admission book. That's this one, which if you're interested in a university course, the book will be exactly the same in 18 months' time. It'll have a different cover. But getting familiar with how the book is put together, what it tells you, what you need to know ahead of time, is a valuable thing. Each of the universities are also old-fashioned, luckily, and they still put out a handbook about every subject that they offer at university. And again, you can borrow this and have a read through. This one's about arts at University of Western Sydney, and if I took this, I can look at everything I want to do for the 4 years of my arts degree. The TAFE still put out a handbook, and I've got that as well. I've also got things like sample resumes, sample covering letters, all the things that you're going to need, the hands-on stuff. And as I said, I love computers and I love the new age, but I like paper. And so when you leave, you get a present from my room. You always get something to take with you. Okay, so that's the UAC books. Resumes, we've done. Study timetables, time management. In regard to seeing you as a parent, I'm more than happy at any time to do that as well. I think it's a journey you travel on together with your son, and I think the 2 of you, the 3 of you, need to be informed together. Sometimes the boys come in and they say, someone said, I hate those 2 words, because 9 times out of 10, someone said something that's wrong, or that might have suited them but doesn't necessarily suit the boy sitting in front of me. Or my dad's brother said, I shouldn't do this. So I'm happy to have that conversation so we all hear it together. Sometimes that can be on a phone. If it suits you better, we can find a time that you can ring me and I can have your son in with me and we can do that conversation. But I'm happy to see you again on your time, which, if necessary, can be after school. I have no issues with that. I'm trying to work around people. Okay, so if you'd like an interview at any time, if you'd like to work out a study timetable or we talk about time management, then by all means just send me an email and or leave me a message on my answering machine and I will get back to you. Tomorrow I will hand out the TAFE application, not the applications, the courses. We've been accepted into about 25 courses, and TAFE have cut back a lot of their courses because of funding and a whole lot of things, but I got an email just before I came down to say St Greg's have got everything they want because you deserve it, because you send me great kids, they do their follow-up, they treat the TAFE with the respect they should, and so therefore we're happy to have you into our courses. With those applications, once they've gone through tomorrow and I give you a confirmation, there is a compulsory sign-on that has to be done sometime this week. So that's Wednesday, Thursday or Friday at the TAFE that your son is enrolled at. So if he's put in to do automotive at Campbelltown, he'll have to go down to Campbelltown TAFE. They're open till 7 o'clock every night. The whole process will take you about 15 minutes to do, but it has to be done before we can send you off to TAFE next week. The school-based apprenticeship boys, we also start that in the next couple of weeks, and so the majority of them will be starting TAFE, though some of them won't start TAFE till the middle of the year, and the rest of them, and all of them will be out on work placement. The Careers Forum I mentioned very briefly, that's on the 26th of July. We were down, as Mrs Keegan said, at the university today. The good thing about it is that the boys from Year 12 had a taste of university life. I think some of them saw the social life a little bit more than the academic life, so I'm going to have a little talk to them tomorrow about balance with that. You don't spend most lunchtimes and the rest of the afternoon sitting around enjoying the sun like some of them did today. But the whole purpose of the Careers Forum is that, and University of Wollongong are one of the best ones, University of Western Sydney, all of the unis come here, the TAFE people come, the apprenticeship board comes, My Gateway, which is a great employment agency at Campbelltown, they'll come and you'll get to talk to people firsthand, the ones that are doing it, the ones who are looking at employing you. So please, that is in your diary, but just it is an important thing to write down. And 2 plugs. Auditions do happen if I put my other hat on. The musical, as Mr Miller mentioned, we start those this week on a Wednesday. You do need to commit. That's the only thing I ask. Someone asked me, did you have to have any talent? I said, well, I just take everybody and we make you look good. So when you leave here at the end of Year 12, it's great to have something on your resume and your reference that says more than he came to school and then he left 6 years later, right? If you're looking for employment, if you're looking for early entry into Wollongong, they told us that today. If boys have the same marks and they're looking at offering an early entry, they'll then go to co-curricular, they'll then go to leadership. So all those things, the open day's coming up in a couple of weeks' time, and we ask Year 11s to volunteer, to be part of that day. All those things we ask you to do, take hold of, particularly in Year 11, and then they can all be written on your resume. And as I said, not talented, just keen, you can put the musical on there as well. There is a parent forum on next Monday for Year 10, 11 and 12, probably one of the most important year groups that we put together because there is a lot of information that happens in this year and next year. And so, as Mr Miller and I have been doing those for the last few years, I think parents who come to those realise that it does give you the opportunity just to stay ahead and to learn things about your son. So, very briefly, I think I've covered all those topics. Thank you very much, and I'm here if you need me after. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dean. A number of past students have found boarding help them to achieve their academic goals. I now invite our Director of Boarding, Mr. Spencer, to outline the opportunities available in boarding.
Good evening, parents, and good evening, gentlemen of Year 11. Thanks for listening to me again. You've probably heard me over the years, but I think tonight's evening talking to you about boarding is probably the most relevant. In Year 12 this year, we have 15 boys who are weekly boarders, and most of them arrived at some stage during Year 11. So just here to talk about everything you've heard tonight. If you've sat there and thought, this sounds a bit overwhelming, I'm not sure, the enthusiasm's there first week of school, and then you sort of get into the grind of things, and if you think this is something I could really do with some support, well, you've got that here in a boarding school at St Greg's, and you've got that here across the road, and a lot of boys take that opportunity. So why would you board? I put the first one up there because it works. Quite simply, most boys arrive. Sometimes they're certainly cautious about coming, sometimes they don't want to come, sometimes mum and dad are bringing them along and think it'd be a really good idea, but the majority of them, this is the case, it works for them. They come in and settle in very quickly and find the structure, the routine, the discipline of having to go to study, the mateship, all the things I've listed up there are the things that work for them. Personal growth and independence I put because it is, all you've heard tonight is about, and I'm speaking to the boys here, all you've heard is about owning your education from here on in, particularly in year 11 and 12. You've chosen to be here, so taking that step into a boarding environment and getting out of home for a few nights a week is a really good step in personal growth and development. And boys grow very quickly in that environment and learn to take that responsibility for themselves. The structure it provides, most of the staff over there also work here at the school. So there are 12 staff that live permanently on site, and then we have 30 staff that work overall in the boarding houses. And that includes tutors that come in, and I'll go through the subjects tutors help with in a minute. But the point is you've got a lot of teachers around you at all times to help. So they're there for conversations not just to do with your studies, but just in terms of deciding what it is you want to do with your lives beyond school. They're a perfect resource for you there 24/7. The routine, it's pretty set in concrete now. It has been that case for many years. It works. You leave school of an afternoon, you go over and get changed. You then have an hour out of the house relaxing or going to sports training, whatever it is you need to do in the afternoon. Then you come back and get ready for first study, which is over here at the school. On Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, we're now doing both studies over here at the school. The boys didn't like that at first, but we've found that it's working in terms of and they've admitted themselves, they're getting through a lot more work that way. Plus it's air conditioned all over here as well now, so that's also helping us. With a new library facility coming online, we've got excellent space to use, and that's going to help us how we will use tutors from now on as well when those spaces become available to us. I put the discipline up there, not because it's necessarily something we sort of lay down the law over there or anything, but just the discipline of getting into that study routine, which is, it's done for you, and it's your mates are there, and those afternoons where you don't feel like it, everyone's going across the road to do study. So it's a sort of forced discipline, but it works. But I also have it there because it's not a magic fix either. And like you have to have that discipline at home and set up your own routine if that works for you, it's the same here. Some guys master sitting and staring at a laptop screen for 3 hours, but I don't know how you could do that. You're just there and you have to use the tutors that are available to you and plan that time and work on study notes, things that boys don't necessarily even start doing until year 11. And you've got the time to do that within this routine. The assistance available, I'll talk about more in a minute. And the last thing there, that's often the first thing boys will tell you about their experience in boarding, that it was all about mateship and the mates they made for life. Now that's absolutely true. And it's special to see the relationships that form and boys that continue on beyond school, that go out into country towns and celebrate 21st and the like. They've got a bed all over country New South Wales, and vice versa. Those country boys really enjoy having nights, over at boys that live locally. That's the beautiful thing about weekly boarding with local boys as well, in amongst the boys from the country. Mateship is an important thing. It's, as I said, it's the first thing the boys put on the list, but by no means least important than the others. Tutoring available, they're all the subjects we have covered this year. We've just worked through the list again this year to make sure we've got all that covered. You can see it's quite extensive, and they're available every night across, particularly Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, to do that. We also have a couple of teachers on staff that work in woodwork, and we'll have the woodwork rooms open during the year for boys to work on their major projects. Some people have said in the past it's a bit of an unfair advantage for boarders, and I'll say to them, yes it is, because why not? Why shouldn't it be? So that's the advantage you're getting there. Please see myself tonight or contact Mrs. Stott, our college registrar, if you'd like to come in at some stage when it's convenient. Until you've seen over there, you don't really know what it's about. That's probably more for the boys than anything. If you've never walked over that side of the school, I'm happy to take you over, even if it's during the day, and just show you what it's like over there. Of course, there's a financial element to all of this, and it's not achievable for everyone. And you've heard the things offered tonight that you have available to you. You know, coming into boarding doesn't have to be the only answer, but it's certainly not. But what I would say is, if you're financially able to do this, and if you're sitting there as a student thinking, there's no way I'm doing that, but your parents are saying, we'd love you to do that and we could afford for you to do that and offer you that opportunity, I think you're mad not to at least consider giving that a go and coming over and having a look, because it is an incredible opportunity over the next couple of years that you could have to set yourselves up for your educational future for the beyond school. So if your parents are sitting there saying, I'd really like you to look at that and we'd be happy to provide that for you, well, the invitation's there for all of you that if you're unsure about it, come and have a look, come and talk to the boys, and you'll find very quickly that if you did come into it, and even if you just did a trial, most of the boys don't go home after a trial. They enjoy it, they love it, and they find it helps them. So please come and see me tonight if you'd like to have a chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Pastoral care is vital to the success of all students. To speak about the pastoral care program for Year 11 and to wrap up the evening, please welcome the Year 11 coordinator, Mrs. Coupland.
Good evening, and thank you once again for your attendance tonight. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Jane Coupland, and I'll be the Year 11 coordinator this year. Together with Mr. McGinnity, our assistant year coordinator, I look forward to sharing your son's HSC journey with them and getting to know as many of you as possible. During our pastoral care program this year, they will have the opportunity to look at a number of pastoral issues that relate to gentlemen of this age. The difficult teenage years when you are no longer a child but not quite an adult. These include goal setting. This will happen during term 1 and is completed while reflecting on their final year 10 report. This will then be reviewed over the following terms with their homeroom teacher. Digital footprint, cyberbullying and social media. Driver education with You Turn the Wheel. Time management and organisation. Exam preparation and study skills, and as Mrs. Dean has already said, we'll have Bruce Salter here tomorrow to begin that. We have guest speakers to come and talk on topics such as resilience and drugs and alcohol. We have a theatre performance, and we have our Insight and Retreat program in term 4. I spoke to Year 11 last week about involving themselves in as many opportunities as they can over the next 2 years, several of these unique to Year 11 and 12. Claymore Homework Club, Reby Juvenile Justice Centre, Community Service, which is a must if you are considering leadership positions for Year 12. So if you didn't complete your Community Service logbook last year, you must complete that this year. The immersion trips. We have 2 this year, one in the April school holidays to the Solomon Islands and one in the July holidays to Fiji. I've been on immersion the last 2 years and can honestly say it is one of the best experiences from my time at St Greg's. It was humbling, life-changing and incredibly rewarding to be able to witness the experience of the Year 11 boys I accompanied. I'd like to invite Michael Calcutt to the microphone to briefly talk to you about his immersion experience from last year.
You boys have 7 more terms of schooling left at St Greg's, and I can tell you how fast the next 4 are going to go, and I can only imagine how fast the following 3 will. And you've got a very limited time to take, advantage of the opportunities which we offer here. And if there's one thing which the school offers, which I'd completely suggest that you take with both hands, it is the immersion trips that are coming up this year. And I guess it's a sense of disappointment to hear only a handful of you boys have put your name forward. to go on these trips. And I know a lot of you boys on a personal level, and I consider a lot of you my mates. And I'm just here to implore you, have a conversation with your parents tonight. Talk to your friends about it over the next few days, or come and ask myself or some of the other boys who went on the trip last year, and they'll tell you that it'll change your outlook on life. It is truly one of the most powerful things which you'll have the opportunity to do in your lives this far, and it's something that, as a school, that we have to offer. You really need to be considering to take advantage of it. To those boys who haven't put any thought into the trip, I'd like you to know that the boys who went last year are the one who didn't really consider it would have that big an impact on them, or didn't think that it would, change them in any way. Ended up, taking the most out of the trip. If you feel like, there's nothing you could learn or you can't be changed by it, I'd really implore you to reconsider that, because there's nothing I can really say to describe the way that the trip will affect you emotionally, but the things that you will see and you will hear while you're over there will change you forever. To any parents here who think that their sons may enjoy the trip but haven't considered it yet, please talk to them about it as soon as possible. Talk between yourself, boys, because really you should all be considering going if it's possible, because it is honestly an unreal experience. Going on immersion myself has given me a completely different view and attitude towards so many things, and the things you will see and learn over there will stick by you your whole life, and they'll teach you so much about what you really need to be happy. If you can't go on immersion for whatever reason, that being, I ask that you make the most of any opportunity you're going to get over the next 2 years, because by the time you graduate in a few years' time, or 2 years' time, you're going to be wanting to have made the most out of your time here. Any opportunity that comes, you've got to take with both hands, because you don't want to be leaving here thinking, what if? So, if you have any thoughts about it, please come see me at the end of tonight or over the next few days. I'd be more than willing to speak to you about it, and please just give it some serious thought and consideration, because it's a cliche, but it is a life-changing experience. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Our theme for Year 11 this year is respect, responsibility and reward. Respect for self, students, family and teachers. If respect is at the core in all our dealings, we improve our ability to communicate and improve our learning in a classroom. It will mean you become role models for the younger students. Hair and uniform. Being able to respect the values and traditions that this school holds in great regard. We can respect rules, authority and people, even when we don't agree with them. I would much prefer to call you and chat about how well your sons are doing than to be discussing hair and uniform. Having said that, the feedback I am getting from the classroom teachers so far has been overwhelmingly positive, and I congratulate you on a great start to Year 11. Responsibility. Gentlemen, you've chosen to be here to undertake the HSC. It's time to step up and be responsible for your own learning, to do your homework, to seek help when needed, to ask questions, be responsible for your actions both at school and at home, to get yourself out of bed, to pack your bag, to make your lunch, to be here on time, in uniform and prepared is now your responsibility. Reward. I'm not talking about physical rewards, but personal rewards. Improve friendships, improve relationships with teachers and family, improve results. An improved attitude can change the environment for all of those around you. And at the risk of sounding cliche, from little things, big things come. My role is predominantly pastoral. I feel strongly about our tradition here at St Greg's about turning boys into fine young men. I would like to work with you as parents so that in 7 terms' time, we have once again succeeded with your sons. Good luck. The HSC is a family journey. I have one child that has completed the HSC, and it is definitely a journey for all. I could probably give you tips on what not to do from a parent perspective, but if there is anything I can do and be of any assistance to you whatsoever, please do not hesitate to call or email. A gentle reminder that if you haven't signed in, could you please do so before leaving. This concludes our evening, and I'd like to thank Alex for being our MC and to Reese and Zach for leading us in prayer. You did a wonderful job. Thank you and safe travels home.